Today in Spider-Man 2099, our Spider-Man is about to be pushed to his very edge. This is the Comicstorian channel. I take some of your favorite trade paperbacks and single issues. I break down the storylines into 2 to 6 issues and read them back to you in a narrative fashion. The point is to cut out the fluff, tell you the core storyline that's going on, and also the panels to avoid copyright problems. If you enjoy this, it's to aid you in buying the comic books yourself, or just let you know what is going on in the world of comic books. Spider-Man 2099 is a series that came out in the 90s, featuring a Spider-Man that was genetically altered to become this Spider-Man character with fangs and talons. In our last 22 issues that we have covered here, everyone has been trying to kill him, and he's kind of getting on edge about it. Also, a character known as Casey constantly gets kidnapped, but now she's been altered to become the perfect mate for Spider-Man 2099. So today he's going to deal with Casey and a cyborg that is finally here to finish the job. What will he do when presented with the opportunity to finally start removing the problems of his life? Let's get into the video. Sometime after Stark Fujikawa was going to make the most ideal person to be with Spider-Man, Casey cheers as she is now pointing her rocket-powered armor towards the city. She lands hard on the ground, declaring, "This is beautiful! Everything's online! It's as natural as breathing," she says to herself, admiring her new power armor. She looks towards the city in the distance, leaping into the air. "Okay, Alchemex, it's payback time," she shouts. Meanwhile, over at Miguel's apartment, Xena is still poring over Lyla's circuitry. He stands over her shoulder, asking how she's coming along. "This part is very delicate, not a word, not even the slightest sound, Miguel," she tells him, but they're interrupted by a pounding on the apartment door. "But loud, disruptive pounding on the door is fine," she snaps. Miguel moves through the apartment, answering to find a distraught Gabe. Gabe and Xena aren't the biggest friends, and after a brief bit of snapping, Miguel offers to leave Xena alone for a while. "Fine, bring me in and ditch me, like the old times," Xena calls over her shoulder. Back at his office, Tyler meets Winstone as his cyborg assistant returns, promising that there is no hard feelings for the man going haywire and trying to kill him. Security interrupts the conversation as they come over the video line, warning Stone that Project Payback is on its way towards the building. "As anticipated, go to Readiness Code Alpha 3, I'll be right down," he tells the security agent. Back out in the city, Gabe finishes explaining what happened to Casey this time, asking his brother if he can help. "I'm starting to think that Casey has a kick-me sign on her back," Miguel sighs, explaining to his brother that if she isn't at Alchemex, there isn't much he can do. Someone suddenly shouts, and Miguel and Gabe turn quick enough to see Casey roar past them in her new power armor. "Is she nuts? Go get her, Miguel! Stop her!" Gabe shouts. He keeps talking, telling his brother that she'll listen to Spider-Man. "Keep your voice down!" Miguel exclaims to him because Gabe just gave up his identity. Miguel pulls Gabe in close, pointing out that Casey broke up with him and probably wouldn't listen to Spider-Man randomly. "She's in love with Spider-Man! She's doing this to impress you!" Gabe tells him quickly. Meanwhile, Casey roars to a stop over the Alchemex building, pulling up short as the Flyboys all surround her. They open fire, but Casey just laughs as the rounds are bouncing off of her. "There are so many ways I could dispose of you guys, but these hurt the most," she says as she fires the rocket lines at them. The rockets slam into their hoverbike, shocking the Flyboys and forcing them to fall off. "I call them bug zappers, turns Flyboys into Fryboys," Casey jokes, but the hoverbikes begin to fall and the Flyboys parachute away. The lines all go tight and Casey's eyes widen in shock as she begins to plummet out of the sky. But suddenly, Spider-Man is there, shouting for her to cut the lines loose. "I can't! I sunk them too deep into the sky!" she shouts back. Spider-Man slashes at the lines with his talons, cutting her free, allowing Casey's rocket boots to lift them back into the air. "We gotta talk, kiddo. Take us upstairs," he shouts in her ear as they fly back into the sky. They land on the nearby rooftop where Casey explains that she was planning on taking the fight to Alchemex. "That's idiotic," Spider-Man snaps at her. "You do it," she points out, and he shrugs at her. "Yeah, but I'm an idiot," he tells her. He looks at her, telling her that she needs to stop doing this before she gets hurt. She shakes her head. "I've been given great power, S-Man, and with great power comes great responsibility." Not that again." Casey gets suspicious about his comment, though, reaching out for his face, asking to know where she knows him from. He pushes her hand away, and he begins to walk away, with Casey questioning if he's actually Gabe, Miguel's brother. But the conversation is interrupted as 3 blasts slam into Casey's armor. She tumbles away as Risque steps out of the shadows. "I'm Risque, and you're next," she smiles at Spider-Man. He doesn't respond, leaping off of the building after Casey as she drops away, a web line shooting out, snagging her heavy armor. He shoots out another line, managing to stop her fall. "Hi, hun. Just hanging around?" Risque asks as she rockets down towards him. She raises her finger guns, aiming at his head. "I'll admit it, I'm an incorrigible punster. You shouldn't encourage me," she says with a laugh, firing off another blast, ripping through the web line that is holding Casey. Spider-Man yells for her as the woman slams into the ground below them. He tries to leap for her, but another laser blast slices through his leg. On the ground, Gabe rushes towards Casey's body, but is stopped by the Flyboys as they close in on her. They order him back, pushing him away, but Gabe pulls the blaster out that he picked up in downtown. He aims it at them, ordering them to get away from her. The cops pause for a moment before aiming their own blasters back at Gabe. "Hold it!" Tyler Stone orders as he strides over to the commotion. He steps up to Gabe, telling the young man that he can't help Casey. "But you haven't crossed a line yet, and we won't even arrest you. Put it down, kid. It's the only way," he says quietly. Gabe nods, dropping his blaster. Stone reminds the cops not to arrest Gabe as he turns away. They nod, and they begin to beat him. Spider-Man lands on another building, nursing the wound on his leg. "Just so you know, S-Man, this is what was meant to be," Risque calls him. He leaps over another one of her blasts, flipping around, punching her in the head. With that, she begins to fly away, with Spider-Man grabbing her jacket and ripping it away to reveal the cyborg body underneath. "Usually I don't get this naked until the third date," she jokes, pulling out her battle staff and rushing him, slamming the weapon into his throat. "You might recognize it. Belonged to my brother. But he'd have wanted me to have it," she says with a smile, reaching down, pulling up his mask, ignoring his struggle as she leans in for a kiss. "Let's see if I'll be killing a handsome man today," she whispers to him, and they kiss briefly before Risque pulls away in shock as blood begins to drop from her lips. "That wasn't polite! Here I was kissing you goodbye!" She snaps, but stops as her body begins to lock up. "I poisoned you with the venom in my fangs!" Spider-Man snaps as he jumps up, pulling on his mask. "I'm Spider-Man, lady, and I don't have to take your crap." He snaps as he begins to beat her. With Risque down, Spider-Man rushes over to his fallen brother, picking him up and acting like they don't know each other. "Stone's people! They took her!" Gabe gasps at the hero. Spider-Man begins to lead him away as Gabe tells his brother that they overheard that they were planning on docking her. But as Gabe is walking away, Miguel's senses begin to go off. "Spider-Man, we have to chat about my sister." Then Tora, the previous assassin, calls to him, aiming his rifle and holding his retrieved staff. Meanwhile, Gabe gets back to his apartment with his mother putting ice on his bruises as he explains to her what happened. "I keep wondering what the world would be like without Alchemex," he whispers to his mother. "A world where they leave me and Casey alone," he says as he puts his bruised face into his hands. She heads over to the door, turning on the light, telling her son to get some rest. Conchetta sighs as she heads out. "It's up to me to put things right. Neither of my sons were ever much use in a fight," she whispers to herself. Spider-Man, meanwhile, is dodging another swing of Venture's staff, punching him in the face. "Well now, a lot feister than the first time we met, ain't ya?" The cyborg laughs. Spider-Man slashes at him again, letting the cyborg be scared like last time. He webs him in the face, causing Venture to take another swing with his energy staff as he rips the webbing away. "Enough of that!" He grunts, blasting off, but Spider-Man leaps after him, webbing his feet. "No let-up, Venture! No mercy!" Spider-Man snarls, shooting out another web line, anchoring himself to a building, pulling the cyborg back down. "You're making a big mistake, Flyboy!" Venture begins to snap, but Miguel knows the only mistake that he has made was going easy on Venture the first time. He pulls him back down, punching him again, sick of the Corps and the assassins coming after him, pointing out that they think that he's weak as he slams Venture back into the ground. The cyborg struggles to his feet, angry. "At least I'm willing to think!" He snaps as he rips the webbing away from his face. He stands up, aiming his rifle at the wall crawler. "And I'm just about out of patience for you, boy." He snarls, Spider-Man leaping at him. "I don't want your patience! I want your head on a stake in an Alchemex Plaza!" Venture opens fire, but Spider-Man avoids the blast, slamming him into the ground, throwing him in front of an approaching maglev train. He leaps off of the cyborg, allowing the maglev track to hold his metal body down as the train bears down on him. "Spider-Man, get your butt back here and get me out of this right now!" Venture shouts in fear. Spider-Man turns back, watching as the train smashes into the cyborg. "I can't believe I did that," Miguel says quietly, his eyes widening beneath his mask as he watches Venture pull his torn body off of the tracks. "That was not funny! You could have killed me! The cyborg snaps at him, laying his rifle down on the ground as he pulls himself up, beginning to stalk towards Spider-Man. "That's what I get for being patient, for being nice," he says, raising his weapon and firing. But Spider-Man leaps around the blast, grabbing Venture's staff. He gets in close, slamming it into his chest, shocking the man. He stands over the smoking body, breathing heavily. "Had enough, Venture?" he asks, but the cyborg doesn't move. "If you think I'm coming over to make sure you're out, you can forget it," he says, but Venture's hand suddenly shoots away from his body, grabbing Spider-Man as the cyborg sits up. "I say you're in deep trouble, boy," he says with a smile. Meanwhile, back in Miguel's apartment, Xena finally activates Lyla's program, the hologram appearing before her smiling. "Hello, Dana. How are you?" "Error, my name is Xena," she corrects. Lyla keeps smiling, motioning over Xena's shoulder. "Yes, I know, but her name is Dana," she says. Dana glares at Miguel's ex. "Well, look who's here," she says icily. Meanwhile, back with Spider-Man, the hands pin him down as Venture leans over him, pointing out that he wouldn't allow himself to be beaten the same way twice. He tells the wall crawler that they are at a stalemate and he doesn't feel like fighting anymore. "If you had listened to me, I was going to tell you that I was obliged to you for beating my sister. I've only been mad at you for a few months. I've got a lifetime of hatred for her," he says, leaning in close, smiling deeply. "And if you hadn't come swinging, we might have been friends. As it is, next time, I'll kill you," he says, with the hands releasing Spider-Man, returning to Venture. First, he picks up his fallen hat, placing it on his head, and he turns, walking away, allowing Spider-Man to disappear into the city. Spider-Man returns to Alchemax Plaza that night, ready to put the fear into Tyler Stone, fear like what Gabe felt earlier that day. He watches as the CEO heads out of the building, getting into his luxury hover. Spider-Man leaps after him, clinging to the underside of the vehicle, allowing it to take him wherever they're going. Miguel thinks about taking the car out mid-air, but worries what damaging it would do to the city. Instead, he allows Tyler Stone to take him into the city, to Stone's mansion. He leaps away before it lands, slipping quietly through the trees onto the grounds. But this doesn't allow him to see his mother, who is standing there, waiting for Stone, who offers her a drink. Miguel begins to slip through the house, trying to find Tyler Stone again. Conchetta sits with Stone in his study, demanding that they release Casey and clear her record, but Stone just laughs. Spider-Man turns his head from his spot on the roof, ignoring the guards climbing to the sound of Stone's voice. Conchetta tells Stone to release Casey again, or she will bring Tyler Stone down. "Oh, really? How?" Tyler Stone asks her, intrigued. Conchetta doesn't hesitate. "How would your father-in-law act when he found out how involved you were in the death of his daughter?" Stone pauses for a moment before he responds. "You don't have proof," he says, but Conchetta stands, telling him that she's always had proof. Stone shakes his head. "You're bluffing," he tells her. Miguel appears into the room from the ceiling, shocked to find his own mother with Stone, even more shocked to see them kissing. "You were always the only woman who was ever a match for me, Connie," Stone tells her as they pull away. He looks at her, promising to release Casey within the hour. Conchetta nods and turns away. But Stone stops her, telling her that he had no intention of hurting her sons. That getting Miguel addicted to Rapture was a bluff. That he was only given a substance that mimicked the effects and would be out of his system in 3 days. In the shadows, Miguel reels from this information, learning that everything he did that accidentally made him Spider-Man was unnecessary. Stone knows that Connie hates him, but she doesn't think that it's possible that he has affection for Miguel. He continues to talk, but Conchetta stops him. "You don't know anything about me, any more than Miguel does. He thinks I hate him because every time I look at him, I see my abusive late husband in his face. But that's not the truth. I see Miguel's father instead. More and more each day, I see you in him," she says. Miguel turns, slumping into the shadows as the identity of his true father is revealed. Conchetta turns to walk out of Stone's office. "And if you ever tell him, I'll kill you," she says. Ooh, we got some drama happening over here in the Spider-Man 2099 series. The true origins of Miguel are now revealed. You see, way back in his real origin, we all thought that it was the Rapture in his system combined with the combination of spider DNA that gave him these abilities. But as it turns out, he didn't have Rapture in his system. He wasn't forcibly addicted to drugs, which means, how did he get these powers? What exactly is going on with that? And we've also discovered that Tyler Stone is his father. Reminds me of like a telenovela. It's like a crazy drama. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Spider-Man 2099. It will be back next Wednesday as we continue this series. This brings us up to issue 25. So we're got about 12 issues left in this entire series, and then we're debating doing all of his future appearances because he does show up in like 2000s, then he shows up again in 2010s. So we could do a couple more of his appearances, but there's not that much Miguel. We are running out of issues, and if you want to see how this concludes, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around as we'll be back next week. He's still got to deal with Casey, Tyler Stone, and that other robot lady, Risque. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and go to our Patreon to get early access to these. Thank you.